This is WJOU 90.1 FM Huntsville, serving the Tennessee Valley, a broadcast service of Oakwood University, on the web at wjou.org.
Good afternoon and welcome to Second Chance. Second Chance is a weekly talk show that examines a wide range of social issues and seeks to inspire physical, emotional, social, and spiritual healing, believing that God is a God of second chances, and through faith, all things are possible. Second Chance airs live each week from the beautiful campus of Oakwood University and features real people with real issues and offers real answers. And now, here's your host, Kenneth Anderson.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Second Chance radio broadcast. I'm Kenny Anderson. As always, delighted to be here with you for the broadcast. It's Sunday, August the 9th, which means that we're already clipping through the month of August. It won't be long before Jazz in the Park, which starts on September the 6th, and Big Spring Park West will begin. But I know that on last week, we had another beginning, and that is the fact that schools are now returning. Students are now returning to school because schools are now beginning to open. And of course, we want to begin welcoming people back into that particular space at whatever level or stage of the game you're at. This is always a very exciting time of year for me because I spent many years in higher education as an instructor and also as an administrator. So it was always kind of like a rebirth and a great time of year because you knew some really good things were about to happen, not just on those institutions, but also in communities where they exist. It's like life just returns because students return. And wherever students are, we know that there's life. On this afternoon, we're going to have some great conversations with people sharing information and inspiration as they always do. And of course, we want to take a moment to welcome those who are tuning in on the radio at 90.1 FM. We welcome each and every one of you to the broadcast and thank you for your regular support. Many of you tell me that you listen and you tune in on a regular basis, and I never take that for granted. And of course, we've got a huge worldwide audience today. There are people listening at wjou.org on the net, and we know you're listening from parts all over the world because we get information from you about how these messages, these inspirational thoughts and these moments of activity and information sharing has blessed your life and provided some direction for you, perhaps. And we are grateful that you're here with us this afternoon, able to join us wherever you might be in the world right now. We thank you for that. Of course, we want to thank those that are tuning in on the live stream this afternoon. And if you're listening on the radio or on the internet, you still have a chance to hop on over to the live stream. That's at Praise 90.1 FM on both Facebook and YouTube, where you can actually see me and see me interviewing the guests who I'll be talking to on this afternoon. And of course, you can always drop your chats in the comments. And we, of course, welcome those experiences and those opportunities to engage with you. We're grateful that we've had a chance to be on this journey for so long. In just a couple of months from now, we'll be starting our 36th year on the air. And I could not be happier that we're still doing it. People, again, ask me from time to time, how long are you going to do the show? I'm going to do it as long as I continue to have fun doing it. And as long as I think it's of value to somebody out there listening or watching, I certainly hope that I will show up regularly to be able to make those things happen. My first guest is here and ready to get rolling, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce him at this time. Curtis Taylor is Vice President of Development for the 100 Black Men Greater Huntsville chapter here in Huntsville. I would say it's one of the elite chapters within the worldwide organization. He is a retired U.S. Army veteran whose distinguished service and leadership continues to shape his civic and professional contributions. He is actively engaged with many organizations, even beyond the 100, including AUSA, that's the Association of United States Army. I've actually seen him in action there. Redstone Huntsville chapter, Disabled American Veterans chapter 26 in Huntsville. And he's been a member of several Prince Hall affiliated Masonic houses for 34 years. I would not be the person who bears the headline because just a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Taylor had the distinction of receiving an honorary degree, and I could not be happier for him. I know that he is over the moon for this acknowledgement, just simply affirms the many things and the many ways that he is deeply invested in this community and his family. He's a father of 4. And of course, we're just glad that he's here today because anytime Curtis shows up, good things happen. Dr. Taylor, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. Congratulations on your honorary doctorate, receiving that. That was
I'm humbled and appreciative.
Yeah, well, talk about it. What was that experience like for you? Do you get a letter in the mail and somebody? How does that happen? What happens?
Actually, I got an email one day, and just out of the blue, not knowing, not even being aware that this process was even taking place. And the email told me that I was nominated for an honorary doctoral degree in the fields of humanitarian and community advocacy. And of course, I was humbled and floored, and I was actually nominated by 4 different people to the same from the Ecclesia Institute, actually. And I started the process. I had to get 4 other people to write letters of recommendation and referral for me and things of that nature. And it was voted upon, and I was one of we had a class of 8 that got to confirm it at the same time out of 26 that I believe. And we were all nominated. We got conferred, and it was an awesome experience. You know, actually, if I'm being honest, I've been speaker for 2 events, one on last Friday and one this past Saturday. And in both events, I was referred to as Dr. Taylor, and I was looking around like, who? So yeah, it's still. It's a feeling of surrealness, and I'm getting acclimated to it.
Well, listen, it is clearly well deserved, and we'll not only unpack some of the journey, but also talk a little bit about your role with the 100, which is the main reason you're here today. But we got a lot of time here, so we're going to take our time and learn as much as we can about you and your journey. I mentioned that you're a retired Army veteran. Talk to me a little bit about your service in the Army.
Well, I actually enlisted into the Army in February of 1990. I actually graduated from high school, and honestly, the Army was never on my radar. I was being looked at for athletic scholarships in the state of Louisiana. I'm originally from Lake Charles, Louisiana, and I was scheduled to attend Southern University in the fall of 1990 on the basketball and track scholarship. And, my grandmother used to have a saying, the quickest way to make God laugh is to tell him you're playing. And that was my plan. I felt like sports was out of my way, out of living conditions that I was in at the time and everything. But on my weekend recruitment, funny story, I actually got hurt. My knee got hurt. It was a situation I didn't know anybody involved. I was just there, wrong place, wrong time. A fight broke out. I'm trying to run to get away, and my knee got messed up. I feel like I could have rehabbed and, got back into shape, but I had an assistant basketball coach. I won't say his name. He was actually trying to get that last scholarship slot for his nephew. So basically it was a case of nepotism that reared its ugly head, which it does from time to time. And I promised my grandmother I would get a college degree. And I'm not proud to admit I come from a background where we were PO without the OR. And at the time, I didn't know anything about Pell Grants and financial aid and all the things that are available to students now. But I remember those recruiters coming to my high school talking about a GI Bill, where you would join whatever branch of service and they would pay for you to go to college. So me knowing that my family couldn't afford and things of that nature, I walked into the recruiter's office, and they had a nickname for me, Superstar, which wasn't in the flattering sense of the word, because I used to talk bad about recruiters. I was a high school knucklehead, thought I had it made. And they were like, wow. So long story short, he was like, I qualified for every job in the Army because I scored a 99 on my ASVAB. But he went down a list of things that I didn't want to do. So after about the 15th MOS, which is job, that he said I didn't want to do, I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do? He said, I'm glad you asked. And at that time, they used to have like a drawer that they pulled out, and it was like a big circular, looked like an old school album. And he put it in the drawer, closed it, hit the play button, and it was this huge M1A1 Abrams main battle tank. blowing up mountains, just tearing up, and he did a recruiter's job, put it on thick. He's like, now, this tank is 63 tons of steel, depleted uranium, virtually impenetrable. And he was like, I'm going to be honest now, mind you, this is August 1990. And at that time, the country was in Operation Desert Shield at that time. He said, I'm going to be honest with you, we're going to war. So if we go to war, you want to be in something that's going to improve your chances of coming back home outside of a box. And I said, yeah, I would rather come back home outside of a box with all of my limbs and everything, of course. But this is where he got me. He said, I'm also going to give you a $35,000 enlistment bonus. 18-year-old me, come from the projects, whatever. I'm proud of everything I've endured in my life. And I felt like I hit the lottery. And just that recently in Lake Charles, Louisiana, they had just brought these riverboat casinos. And of course, the houses always win, and nobody never hit big or nothing like that for real. But when he told me that 35,000, I was like, sign me up. I'm there. So, but he never told me that once it got taxed, that 35,000 was going to turn to 19,000. Left that part out conveniently. So long story short, I went from high school, and as he predicted, I went to war. I went from high school to Desert Storm. And that was my first experience of real life Army, as I call it. And during my time of service, I was actually awarded the Bronze Star for Meritorious Valor from General Norman Schwarzkopf at the time. So I was real proud of that achievement. And, of course, again, that plan thing, my plan was to do 4 years, get that GI Bill, go out and have the college experience. But that 4 years turned to 20 years. And I kept my word to my grandmother and got my degree during my time of service and retired honorably in 2010.
Wow, Curtis, that is just a phenomenal backstory. And you said so many things in the context of sharing that. Thank you for your openness and your transparency, because I know you've already touched people's lives in what you shared. And I want to follow up on a couple of things you said. You talked about your grandmother. You referenced her a few times now. Clearly, she means a lot to you and stands at the center, I'm sure, of so much of your life compass and how you have moved through life.
Definitely.
Talk about how significant that relationship was for you in terms of looking back now from where you are back to that time.
It's my grandmother, she was my rock. I will say that. Of course, I had my mom and I had my dad, but, they ended up divorcing early in my childhood and everything, which is just a fact of life for a lot of people. But I was fortunate enough to spend a lot of my childhood with my grandmother. And my grandmother, unfortunately, she passed away in 94, but she lived to be 97 years old. Wow. And she was like just as sharp as a tack, had all of her faculty. She was actually even still driving, at 97, like, honestly. And it's so much, I remember just sitting on the porch drinking coffee with her. She drunk Folgers coffee. I haven't drank coffee since I was a kid with my grandmother, even after 20 years in the Army, never touched it again. Wow. And she just would tell me so many stories and things about life and things that happened over her decades of life and things of that nature, and just imparted me with so much wisdom. But one of those things she used to always say is, no matter what you're going through in life, whether you think you have it bad, no matter what's going on, just always know and remember that at some point the Lord will provide. And that stuck with me my entire childhood, through adolescence, through high school, through my Army career. I've learned that no matter what I was facing, at some point the Lord will provide.
Wow. I got to ask you too about just the impact of the lessons learned in that space, and the idea that she had a dream for you that was much bigger than anything you could see at that time, but you wanted to honor what she felt was right for you, or what was for you, even in that context. And you clearly have had a distinguished career in the military, in the community, and providing service and more education. Clearly has a strong value in your life. Talk to me about how those experiences and those influences have come together now and find you in a place of serving as a leader in a community-based organization that serves young boys and young men, and the commitment that you have as it relates to these organizations connected to what you experienced growing up until now.
Well, it's as we grow up, and call ourselves finding our own way in adulthood and things of that nature. Of course, we all may or may not have veered off the beaten path, which I'll be the first to admit. I've been young, I've been reckless, I've been foolish at times, but it's always, I always could hear her voice in the back of my head saying, all right. And after that third, all right, I'm like, all right, no, I need to, you know what, let me stop whatever I'm doing. But, you know, it's just recently, and I'm going somewhere with this, just recently, I was fortunate enough to speak on a panel on behalf of the 100 this past Saturday, actually. And one of the other panelists was a gentleman named Keith Reed. And a lot of people in the Huntsville area know Keith Reed. He's retired Army as well. He and I actually served together at one point, and he's retired from the Madison County Sheriff Department after serving 28 years. And he also has a program that he does called Operation Making a Difference. Mm-hmm. Keith is also, I refer to Keith as my big brother, and I have for the last almost 30 years or so. And he's been around me a lot of my adult life when I was making reckless decisions and things of that nature. And one day he pulled me to the side. He's like, hey, man, let me talk to you. And if you know Keith, he's a very blunt person. Yeah. And he's a big man in stature. Right. And he's like, you know, I would hate to put these paws on you, but you really pissing me off. You know, I'm cleaning up his verbiage. He's like, I know of your family. I know your history and everything. And you're doing things. And I'm just be honest with you. You're embarrassing your folks. Mm. And I never had nobody come to me like that. I was fortunate enough to have mentors like Keith and various other people that poured into me way back then. And I actually said that during my speech because he was sitting right there. And I believe in giving flowers when you're around to receive them. And when I said that, a tear came to his eye because he probably forgot about that moment. But then he thought about it. He's like, yeah, I did say that. I told him that almost 30 years ago. And here, 30 years later, fast forward, we're together on a panel at a community advocacy event pouring into young kids. Wow. And I can honestly say, you know, unfortunately, my father passed away in 1989. And I went through that phase of, you know, nobody can tell me nothing. My dad's dead, you know, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, gentlemen like Keith and other individuals along the way, I can say I was fortunate enough to have mentors that poured into me, that instilled in me, that pulled me back to the beaten path, if I can coin a phrase using that. And I'm very appreciative. So yeah, those lessons from my grandmother definitely left a lasting impact, and the ability to have mentors along the way that pretty much tried to keep me on the straight and narrow. And once I realized the error of my ways, it was simple for me to move forward.
I absolutely love all of that. And I love the fact that it's such a small world. You know, you mentioned Keith, and I was like, yeah, I've known Keith forever. And then you guys had a relationship going way back. It's just amazing how these things happen. And we have an opportunity to, as you said, reflect on the journey in a very positive way. I'm talking this afternoon with Dr. Curtis Taylor. He is Vice President of Development for the 100 Black Men Greater Huntsville chapter right here in the great city of Huntsville. Wherever you're listening right this afternoon, you may be in a city or state that has a chapter of 100. You know that this is an organization that does some very meaningful and productive things, especially centered around mentoring young boys and men. And there are a couple of big things that are coming up that Curtis has his hands in. Curtis has his hands in a lot of things. And oftentimes one of the things he has his hands in is a check presentation, because he's got a way with moving about the community and be able to talk to people about the work that this organization is doing and why there's value in donating and providing for this nonprofit service. Tell us a little bit about the Boston Butt fundraiser that's coming up very soon.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to. Actually, as you alluded to earlier, my role within the chapter of the 100 Black Men of Greater Huntsville, I serve as Director of Development. And some of my responsibilities as Director of Development are to initiate or coordinate fundraisers as I see fit. And a couple of the main fundraisers that we have is our annual John Ritchie Memorial Golf Classic, which I'll talk more about later. And we also have our end of the year holiday gala, which is our 100 Black Men holiday gala, which is held every December. But the Boston Butt fundraiser, which came about myself and a couple other members of the chapter were talking. And due to the fact that as director of development, I'm able to initiate fundraisers as I deem fit that will be helpful to the chapter. And we were talking, I was like, you know what, man, we gotta do more. You know, we have 2 major fundraisers we do throughout the year, but we got to do more. And we were talking. It was myself, another brother, William Kelly, another brother, William Henry Pope. We were all at the Chinese restaurant buffet, and Brother Pope was like, you know what? I've tried to do Boston Butt fundraisers in the past, but you know, in previous administration, he was turned down for whatever reason. And you know, we had this thing in our chapter, which you're very well of. A lot of the older brothers used to say, "Well, as long as it's by the bylaws, you know, it's good to go." So I keep that in the back of my head. So I say, well, I'm rehearsed in the bylaws, especially on my position, and it says that I have the ability to initiate fundraisers as I deem fit that will benefit the chapter. So I was like, you know what? We're going to do the Boston Butt fundraiser. It's a no-brainer. So we came up with the ideas of how we were going to do. We sought out a individual that's, and I'm just going to put it out there. This individual is actually somebody that Brother Kelly knows because he knows everybody also. And this individual has large competition grills that he's won trophies for barbecuing or putting Boston Butts on the grill. So this gentleman is going to do our Boston Butts. We've initiated it. It's gaining traction as we speak. The Boston Butts are $50 each. Like I said, we've been doing it. We've put it out there since the beginning of August. Well, the last part of July, beginning of August, and it's taking a life of its own. We have a goal of, we set a goal of doing 100 butts. As it stands, the last time I checked, which was last night, I believe we're at 37 already. Mm-hmm. And we have up until August the 29th, which will be the pickup day for those that, and we have volunteers that will deliver for those who aren't able to make it, to pick it up. So we're going to do that on the Calhoun Community College campus here in Huntsville on Wind Drive. That'll be the pickup spot. We've already coordinated with public safety and everything, went through all of the process of getting that solidified. But yeah, it's really, a lot of people, Matt, Kenny, that a lot of times when you initiate something, you're going to have your doubters, your naysayers. A lot of the young kids say haters or whatever the case may be. And we've been doing it, and it's so far it's been a tremendous success.
That is awesome. And one of the things I love about that most is something you said earlier, just with regards to just the vision of a leader. And if that vision is affirmed by language in the bylaws that empowers you to do what needs to be done, you don't need to sit back and wait for the organization or individuals to say, do this or that. It's creatively looking at how do we provide support to anchor these programs that benefit these young boys, and then ultimately give them a chance to succeed and give back to society. And we see that, of course, on a regular and sustained basis within this organization. We got about 5 to 6 minutes left. I want to make sure we talk a little bit about the golf tournament. Every year now for the last couple of decades, there's been a huge golf tournament that the 100 has promoted. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, good. Well, I'm looking at the flyer in front of me. It's going to be, of course, as you alluded to, the 25th annual John Ritchie Memorial Golf Classic. And I've never got the opportunity to meet Mr. John and everything, but I do know that he was a member of high esteem within our organization. And this, when they started the classic, it was named after him, and it's been continuing the last 24 years. This year will be the 25th. And it's going to be held on August the 22nd at the Colonial Golf Club, which is located at 400 Colonial Drive in Meridianville, Alabama. The schedule is going to be like a 6:45 a.m. on-site registration, 8 a.m. shotgun start, and it's going to be awards luncheon following golf. And just to real quickly, there's if those are inclined to want to assist 100 and making this golf tournament a success, because as you alluded to, all the fundraisers we do go directly to benefit our Men of Tomorrow mentees. Everything that we do is on their behalf. There's a couple of ways that you can do so. And I'm not going to go into every detail, but we have 4 different sponsorship levels. There's a gold tournament sponsorship level that's $3,500. I can do it real fast. And that will enable you to have 2 4-player teams, principal advertising, radio, social media, online. Also, your main logo listed on our website. Also on the 100 Black Men of Greater Huntsville Facebook page ad. 8 mulligans, 6 company signs at different holes, and prime product marketing the day of the tournament. The second level of sponsorship is the silver tournament sponsorship, which is $2,000. And that enables you to have 2 four-player teams, the logo listed on the website, the Facebook page ad, 8 mulligans, and 4 company signs at different holes. There's also the third level of sponsorship, which is the Beverett Cart tournament sponsorship. That's $1,200. It gives you 1 four-player team, the website ad, the Facebook ad, 4 mulligans, and 2 company signs on different holes. And last but not least is the corporate tournament sponsorship, Kenny, and that one is only $800. That one gives you a 4-player team, website listing again, Facebook ad again, and 4 mulligans and 1 company sign on the holes. So basically, that's the 4 different ways of sponsorship, should you be inclined to do so. And we've had people, like you mentioned to the check presentation earlier, this past Wednesday, we did a check presentation with I3, and they were like one of the first corporate sponsors to do the corporate tournament sponsorship. So we're very, very, very thankful for them and very appreciative. And all the other companies and individuals or whatever the case may be that just want to come on board and sponsor one of these sponsorship levels or whatever you can do. Because a lot of companies, what we're asking for at this point is they don't want to do one of these. You also can be involved by doing hole signs for your company or your business or on behalf of a veteran or whatever the case may be. And those hole signs are only $120 each. So those are 5 ways actually that you can help out.
Well, I'm going to give you a 6, and you know this, but door prizes. Somebody wants to donate a door prize.
Yes.
You're open to receiving those kinds of things. And I love the fact that you can look at multiple options and offer those to people, because people don't have to look at something and just count it off because they're like, well, I don't have that amount or I don't have that opportunity. But this is really about engaging the community in such a way that people are now independently challenged to think about, what can I do? I'm not trying to match what somebody else is doing. I'm thinking about, what can I do? Because the end result is that the community wins, the sponsors win, and the organization wins because of everyone coming together. And so that's why I think this is such an important conversation as we begin to wrap things up. Again, give us the date on the 25th annual tournament.
The date is going to be August the 22nd. It's going to be held at the Colonial Golf Club. Address is 400 Colonial Drive in Meridianville, Alabama. And everything, like I said, we're going to have a 6:45 a.m. registration, and everything kicks off as it follows.
You know, at 6:45, that just shakes a brother up when he's retired. Oh my God.
Well, you know, these avid golfers, it doesn't bother them.
Right.
They will be out there.
Oh, they're going to be there. I know that. I just really got into golf last year for the first time, and I've been out, I think, 4 times since last year. Not much, but I've been on the range and stuff like that. So I'm trying to find my sweet spot and develop some consistency, take some lessons and things of that nature. So it's possible that, you know, I'll show up on the course, not just as a member, but also as a supporter of the event. Let's let people know in the last minute or so, how can people contact you, or where can they get information?
Well, they can contact me via cell. My phone number is on everything, is area code 256-566-9653. You can also follow me on my social media pages, Curtis Taylor Sr. And you can also go to the 100 Black Men of Greater Huntsville website, which is www.100bmogh.com, 100 Black Men of Greater Huntsville.com. All the information is put on there, and that's for all of the fundraisers that we do throughout the year, whether it's the Boston Butts, whether it's the golf tournament, the holiday gala. Everything can be easily found on there.
Yeah, one-stop shop to be able to figure out how can you provide support for an organization that is doing great work now. We were earlier this year in June at the 40th annual conference in the birthplace of the 100 Black Men, which took place in 1963. So this is an organization that's been doing work for a long time, and we've been putting the work in here in Huntsville for a long time. So we hope that you'll come out and support the organization, Dr. Taylor, and more. Curtis, thank you for joining me this afternoon. We look forward to additional conversations. You know, you always have a platform here to be able to share information about what's going on with the organization and how we can be supportive.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
All right, brother. Take care, man. Have a great day.
Likewise.
All right. Dr. Curtis Taylor joining me for a conversation about the 100 Black Men Greater Huntsville chapter and the awesome work that they're doing, 25 years of golf tournaments. And I got to tell you again, folks, I've been a member of the organization for almost 20 years now, maybe 20, but it's certain close to 20. And I've been right on board ever since the beginning with the opportunity to think about how this organization is deeply invested in the lives of young boys. You know, there's really no better thing to see one of our mentees who started with us when they were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and they've gone off to college. They're actually working now. They have families. They've served in the military. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing that takes place in the space of this organization. So check them out. Learn more about him. Curtis is a great guy. You'd love to meet him. He left his cell number. So I hope and encourage you to definitely work to get in touch with him as soon as you possibly can. My next guest is with me now, and I'm so happy to see him. I'm always happy to see him, actually, but I'm really happy to see him on this platform. He's been on here before in another capacity, but it came to me the other day for some reason. Maybe something scrolled across my feed. It wasn't necessarily from him, but it was about an organization and an initiative that he is deeply invested in as well. Stuart Obermann joins me today. He's been affiliated with the ALS Association since 2004. As father and one of the 2 primary caregivers to his 28-year-old son, Eric, who lived with Lou Gehrig's disease for 8 years, from 2002 to 2010, Stuart's experiences with ALS impelled him and his wife, Marcia, to launch the association's Alabama chapter that serves the entire state of Alabama, and to establish an ALS certified center of excellence right here in the city of Huntsville. He was the founding chair of the Alabama chapter and served from 2004 to 2014. Time will not permit me to talk about all of his accomplishments, but we'll weave that into the conversation today. Stuart Obermann, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Kenny. It's great to see you as well, my friend. I can't remember how long it's been since I believe our last interview was up at ETV up on Monticello. So you've changed studios. I'm working virtually, so it's a different world. But it's great to see you, and I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. I think we both retired a few years back and trying to live the good life that we've been looking forward to for so many years.
Yeah, so let's start there, because that's a great place to launch a conversation, because I get the retirement check-in often. And when retirement check-in for me is I run into somebody and they're reminding me that I'm not really retired because they see me all the time. My response is, well, I'm still alive. I'm really happy and honored to be seen. And so I feel like being about, I feel like moving around. I just do it on my own time and my own terms. What has retirement been like for you, Stuart?
It's been great. I'm 4 years into it now. And I will say that just like, planning a career or an extensive vacation, you really do need to spend some time in those years before you retire thinking about what are you going to do with all this newfound time? And I'm sure your experience has been similar to mine. It's like, how did I possibly work 40, 50 hours a week and get done everything that I'm doing? It just seems inconceivable. But my wife followed me about a year. After that, she spent 43 years in healthcare as a registered nurse and in nursing administration. So I got about a year head start because I'm a year older than her, kind of getting my processes together and figuring out how I'm going to organize my days. So I've helped her along, and we spent a lot of time traveling. We had a lot of trips that we've been talking about for many decades that somehow we could just never find the time to get away and enjoy that. So we're trying to check that list off. Started getting serious about fitness and mobility and trying to stay healthy. I often will say health is wealth, and it really doesn't matter how much money you have at the end of the day if you're not feeling well and able to enjoy your life and spend time with your family. It kind of diminishes the happiness that you can achieve during our golden years, if you will. But staying busy, I like you, I often run into people that say, I didn't realize you were retired. I'm seeing you out here and there, but I will say that I've dramatically reduced the amount of time I'm trying to spend doing volunteer work in terms of just the sheer number of boards I've served on. I'm sure you're probably experiencing the same thing. It's easy to get sucked into many activities, and you do have to learn to say no. And in preparation for retirement, realizing that might happen, sort of coming from the nonprofit sector as I did, I promised her I would never take on more than one board commitment at a time, both out of fairness to her and also to the organizations that I wish to serve. I've always said that, if I'm sitting on 5 or 6 boards, I really can't do justice to all of them, if any of them. And if I'm going to join a board, I want it to be with an organization that I'm passionate about. I feel strongly it aligns with my values, and that I can really engage deeply and make a difference in the kind of work that they're doing. So today I'm serving on the board of the Land Trust. This is, I believe, my 4th year. And just so happens this is the year I'm serving as board chair. Really enjoying that work. I think most people in Huntsville, Madison County are aware of the Land Trust. I believe we're 33 years old this year, something like that. Growing and managing over 10,000 acres of land throughout North Alabama. We have 10 public nature preserves. People know us for our trails, but we really do much, much more than that. We do the trails, and that's a full-time job for many people, just maintaining those, especially with the kind of weather we get here in North Alabama. But our education program has been exploding, and we've got a lot of really exciting announcements coming up in the next 12 to 18 months related to our facilities and the type of educational programs that is going to accommodate.
I love all of that, Stuart, and I definitely want to invite you to come back and have some additional conversations around that. I know on this platform, I'm always trying to expose people to things that they may not know about or that they may know more of. And I think that would be a great place to spend some time talking about what you're doing and the work that the Land Trust is doing. I want to step back for 1 second because not only does so much of your journey align with my experiences in different kinds of ways, but one of them does not, that I'm just fascinated about. And every time you post something about it, I said, look at Stuart doing this thing one more time. And that's the triathlete in you. When did that part of your life begin? Have you always been a triathlete, or was that something you picked up along the way?
That's a great question, and I'm happy to talk about that. Kenny, I am not a lifelong athlete. I was a skinny little weak kid, band kid, bookworm. I focused on studies, and my then girlfriend, who 43 years later is my wife. 46 years later, oh my gosh, I hope she's not listening. I lost track.
We got the receipts.
Let's just say that occupied a lot of my time when I was a young man. I was not out running or cycling or swimming or doing any of those things. I really wasn't a jock at all, and showed no promise of that. But as I mentioned, when you asked about retirement, my wife and I both believe that, remaining mobile and trying to stay healthy and fit is critically important as you get into your 60s. And certainly the 70s are right around the corner, I think, maybe for both of us. Mm-hmm. And it's vitally important, for your quality of life that you remain active. So we both, not long after our son passed away in 2010, we were in our early 50s, I think. And it was actually my wife, Marcia, who got me started with running. And I was a very mediocre runner, and it was just a great way to get out and, work off some of the trauma of the previous decade that we'd spent as caregivers for our son, and, his death and overcoming the grief that was associated with that. So running became an outlet and a way to kind of stay fit, and, also to try to counteract the effect of 4 decades of basically sitting in a chair hunched over a computer in technology jobs. So I started running, and it really wasn't until I retired that I decided to take up triathlon. I've had a lot of friends who were runners, but also triathletes, and I could cycle. I wasn't a good cyclist, but I had a bike, and they said, well, why don't you try this thing called duathlon? It's you run and you bike. And I said, well, I think I can do those. And it was fascinating. It really added a dimension to a single sport race, like a run or just a cycling race. There's a transition there. It adds and there's nutrition factors. When you get into some of the longer races, these are endurance races, and that takes a lot more training, obviously, but also focus on hydration and nutrition. And so it's a mental game or sport, if you will, as much as it is physical. Both are really important. You can't get along on physical ability alone. And then I guess 2.5 years ago, one of my buddies in the Tri Club said, "Hey, why don't we get you in the pool?" I could swim across the pool, but that was about it, right? And I'd be gassed after swimming 25 yards. And I thought, there's no way I can swim 400 yards or some of these longer races where you swim 1.2 miles or 2.4, like in a full Ironman. And so I just started working at my swimming game, and I still am a mediocre swimmer at best, but I can swim a mile or a mile and a half and not die. So that's the goal achieved right there. But I've just enjoyed that. It's been a great way to stay fit. And by mixing up the sports, if you're a runner only, that can be tough on aging knees and hips and joints. But if swimming is famously low impact and a great cardio, aerobic fitness routine, and cycling is easy on the joints as well compared to running. So I just started doing that, and I got involved in our local triathlon club called the Rocket City Tri Club. Wonderful group of people. And I'd be happy to talk about that or bring some other folks on to talk about that, because it's a growing sport. And I've never met someone who tried triathlon who said, "This isn't for me. I really don't like this." It's, you may not be great at it, but it's very inclusive. And we've got people of all ages, sizes, and abilities in there, and just an incredibly supportive organization. So I've just had a great time, both socially and physically, getting involved with that and doing these triathlons. And it's just something I can challenge myself with.
I love it. And I see the post, and I'm glowing when it happens, because, as you said, we are men of a certain age, and it's important to be mindful of those things. And there's no one who's stopping us from doing what we should do in order to preserve the quality of our lives. And so when we really kind of lean into those things, I really connect with people who are doing that. I would love to have that conversation as well. I'm making a mental note of that. We'll have you back for that as well. Talk to me a little bit about Eric, because your journey, of course, towards establishing this organization, this chapter here in the state, really was motivated by that experience. Talk to me about your son, Eric.
Sure. My son, Eric, I had two children. Eric was our oldest, and he was 2 years old when my young family at the time moved to Huntsville from St. Louis, where my wife and I were born and raised. We moved down here to, I worked at a defense contractor back in St. Louis, moved down here to work for Intergraph, do a career change, get into software. And our son was 2 years old, and we moved down to and fell in love with Green Mountain down in South Huntsville. And I now live a half a mile down the street from where I used to live. So we've been in two homes up here on the same street on Green Mountain for 43 years, I guess it's been. Wow. But Eric was similar to me, and not an athlete. He was a band kid, into math and computer science. Just kind of I'll call him a nerdy kid. That's nothing offensive anymore as it one time was when I was young, but a good student. And he graduated from Grissom in 2000. And about that time, I think it was so gradual. And since he was in our home, we saw it every day. And so we really didn't pay much attention to it, but he started to develop at first very minor speech impediment, sort of a lisp, if you will. He wasn't able to pronounce certain words or really clearly enunciate. And that was a change. And I think it was some of our expanded family who first really noticed that when we went back to Missouri for kind of a family reunion, a big Thanksgiving or Christmas one year. And my brother pulled me aside and then said, "Hey, Stuart, have you noticed anything different about Eric's speech?" And I said, no, he's perfectly normal. And he described what he thought was sort of a speech impediment. And then as I listened more carefully, then I thought, that is different. It's not just what we might normally write off as lazy teenage speech. Sometimes teenagers particularly, they talk really fast. And as my mother, the English major, would say, you don't enunciate, like we all like our children to, but that's not something that, 18, 19-year-olds are prone to do naturally. So that we first went to, I believe, a speech therapist, and that started a long chain of about 2.5 years of going to different specialists. At one point, someone referred us to a neurologist. They then referred us to a neuromuscular specialist. And to make a very long story short, we visited Mayo Clinic, Emory. We went to Washington University in St. Louis. And finally, after seeing probably 5 or 6 different neurologists and neuromuscular specialists, one neurologist said, "I'm sorry, your son has ALS. Do you know about that?" And of course we did. We had done some, this was before Dr. Google was really that prominent, but we had done some internet research, and the information at the time was very primitive and of questionable quality. But my wife, being in healthcare, had already come to the conclusion that this is something like ALS, if not ALS itself. And I think the reason it took so long to get a definitive diagnosis is that, the kid was 20 years old, right? And 20-year-old, otherwise healthy kids don't get this disease. This is a disease that you and I might get in our 60s or 70s. It skews male. About 55 to 60% of the newly diagnosed are male, and there's a higher propensity for white Americans as opposed to Asian or Black or Hispanic. Part of that could be just that in some communities it's underreported. There's areas in Alabama, for example, that they don't have a neurologist within 100 miles of some of these patients. And so they either take longer to get diagnosed, or they perhaps never get diagnosed properly. And so they pass away from what might be billed as paralysis, on their death certificate, which you can deduce maybe is something like ALS or some type of neuromuscular disease. But we got drawn into this because at that time, when we did get the diagnosis, we started searching for help and organizations that could provide support, not just for Eric, but for the family, because it is a family disease. And there really was very little. The Muscular Dystrophy Association, MDA, as we all know, has been a prominent organization in town. And they did have some resources for ALS families, but their focus has always been, remember Jerry's kids, right? It's the young people with MD and all that. There's 46 different strains of that disease that they care for. And ALS was almost I won't say an afterthought, but it was not a primary focus for the MDA. In that process, we learned about the ALS Association, which was one of, at the time, probably 4 or 5 nonprofits operating in the United States that dealt with ALS. And the ALS Association was by far the largest. So a couple of other family members who were dealing with ALS at the time and I went up to Washington, D.C. for an annual conference that they did up there. And we're just blown away by, first, the number of people there. We walked into a conference room and there were over 100 people living with ALS in that room. And I had never seen more than 3 or 4. We call them pals. They're people living with ALS, but I had never seen more than 3 or 4 of these pals together at one time. And to be able to meet, I didn't meet all 100 of them, but I met several dozen and talked to their families and learned what were they doing in their home states and learned about the great programs and services that the ALS Association chapters were providing for their family members. And the members of our delegation, and Bonnie McDonald, who you may have met her husband was a patient. He's long passed away, but he was Jimmy McDonald and had a long career at the Huntsville Times and worked for Bob Ludwig. But Bonnie and I came back and said, we need to bring this to Huntsville and to Alabama. And so we kind of put together an initial board of directors, mostly family members of the people that were dealing with the disease, and some friends and business associates, and founded our little organization. I believe it was in 2004 or 5. And it became a registered or a chartered chapter of the association. You have to meet certain organizational guidelines and prove, financial viability. But I believe that happened in 2007. And I had the pleasure and honor of serving as the initial founding board chair for that organization. And I think I did it for 10 years before they finally kicked me off. I kept bumping off the term limit, but at some point, you have to let new blood come in and do that. And as our family, we had other things to deal with too. So it was kind of a relief for my wife and I to step back from the day-to-day doing that as volunteers.
Yeah. It was one of the things that I've always often thought about with ALS. Big Yankees fan. So, of course, I knew Lou Gehrig's story for many, many, many years. And then, of course, prominent people like Stephen Hawking and others. So, it's always kind of raised its head at times and manifested itself in those kinds of ways. And I often think about the way many diseases manifest themselves in people's lives, because we hear about the stories of the well-known people, but it's just kind of an everyday thing for so many people, the regular common people who are impacted by this. You mentioned it being a family thing, and I'm going to actually want to bring you back, and let's have a part 2 on this. We got about 9 minutes, but I'm going to want to bring you back to continue this, because we're just really starting to unpack this, and I'm realizing that there's a lot here to unpack. Talk to me a little more about the family dynamic, because for so many people, I know they feel like they're dealing with issues in isolation, and they may feel some of the frustration or the sense that we can't get to where we need to get to because there's not something there that we need, or they're not things that we know. Talk a little bit about that dynamic of the journey.
Yeah, when you meet someone who is a caregiver for an ALS patient or talking directly to an ALS patient themselves, I think invariably they will use that term. It's a family disease. This is not a family member that is just suffering in isolation, because as the disease progresses, in our son Eric's case, for example, let me back up for just a second. There are 2 broad categories of ALS. One is called bulbar onset, that affects initially the muscles of the neck, the mouth, the tongue, and that's what caused the tongue atrophy, caused the speech impediment. And then there's limb onset, which is more typically the case. I think 60% of the cases are limb onset. And there the disease manifests itself through loss of functionality in a hand, or you'll have foot drop. Many people will stumble, or the first sign will be they drop a platter or something like that. And that starts that journey. But particularly with bulbar onset, it progresses more rapidly. And eventually, every patient is different. The progression is different in every single one of them. And I guess other diseases, you could argue that, but it's, having met literally hundreds of patients and talked with many of their families and their physicians, it really is a random disease and very unique in how it affects each individual. But ultimately, you lose functionality. It's a muscle wasting disease. And at the high level, I think you can think of it as the motor neurons, which are the nerves that connect the motor control within the brain out to all these different muscles throughout the body. They start to die, and the motor neurons begin to deteriorate at either the upper end or the lower end. And that gets beyond my pay grade to discuss the differences there. It does affect how the symptoms are manifested, but ultimately you end up paralyzed, usually body part by body part. And if the patient lives long enough, you lose the ability to eat, to speak, obviously, to swallow, and to breathe. And so invasive techniques can be used if the patient so desires that to extend life. In Eric's case, because he was such a young man, at age, I believe it was 22, we had to make the decision of, are we going to put him on a mechanical ventilator, on basically a respirator? Otherwise, he would die of the inability to breathe. And we made that choice with his guidance and counsel, of course. And that allowed us to get another 6 years of life with Eric and help him to be such an effective advocate, which really became his full-time job, our full-time job was enabling him to do what he did so well, which was to advocate at the state, local, and federal level for additional funding for ALS programs and research. So our family got deeply involved, and I really, Kenny, I think it was a great blessing and privilege for us that we were both able to do that, had the resources to step back for a little while from our careers and support Eric and get deeply involved in this work. But it changed our lives in very profound ways, and we're different people than we were before that. And in many ways, better people. I mean, I love the work that I've done. The second half of my career was all nonprofit. The first half was really in technology and internet companies and doing startups. And I found that this latter half of my career was much more meaningful and rewarding and gratifying than the first half. And this would not have happened had it not been for our son's misfortune with this horrific disease.
Where do people who might be listening this afternoon get more information about ALS? Where do they get more information about support services and resources that might be available for them?
Sure. Great question. And ALS.org is the main website for the ALS Association. They do have, of course, services available to people living in North Alabama, all of Alabama. There's also services in the surrounding areas in Georgia and Tennessee. But the starting point would be ALS.org. There's a great tool on the website especially for the newly diagnosed, who are people that are just, overwhelmed with information and trying to figure out, where do I go from here? And there's I believe it's called the ALS Navigator, and that can kind of walk you through what to do next. The first thing, and I get calls once or twice a month from people who are newly diagnosed. Maybe they heard about Eric, or they knew that my wife Marcia or I were associated with this disease and the clinic or what have you, and they want to know, what do we do? And the first thing we tell them to do is to get in touch with the ALS Association and ask for an appointment at a certified treatment center and an ALS multidisciplinary clinic. And that is I can't say it's a lifesaver, but it certainly greatly enhances the quality of life and the ability to live longer with ALS if you can get early into one of these certified treatment centers of excellence. The first one in the state being right here in Huntsville. We're really fortunate that we've got that treatment center at Crestwood Medical Center. And my wife Marcia was directly involved in the founding of that, and she's since retired from that as well. But the good work continues on there, and they continue to see more and more people. But the short story is ALS.org has all the information, and I'd be happy to speak to anyone who was interested in, sort of asking some specific questions. As I said, we get a couple calls a month from people, and we're happy to talk with them and try to give them guidance and point them to the right people so that they can get the help that they so badly need and deserve.
Yeah. Did you want to leave a contact point?
Sure. Well, I would say ALS.org, and if you want to share my email, I can do that. It's my first name dot last name, STUART.OBERMANN @Comcast.net.
All right, fantastic. 60 seconds. I'm going to ask you this final question, Stuart. In the midst of any adversity, I've learned to find some semblance of optimism, some semblance of hope. You've been in the ALS space for many, many years now. Where do you find that optimism and hope in this moment?
I think that it's much easier for me today to be hopeful and optimistic about the future than it was 24 years ago, I guess, when this disease first crept into our lives so abruptly. And a big part of that came from the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. I think most of your listeners probably heard of that. It was a worldwide viral phenomena. And that one event that occurred in July through August of 2014, 12 years ago now, it's hard to believe, raised over $140 million in donations for nonprofits in the ALS community. over 100 million of that going to the ALS Association, with which I am directly affiliated. And I was fortunate to be serving on the board of trustees for the national organization at that time. We were able to take that money, invest it, and triple the amount of money we were spending on research from our budget with that windfall. And we spent that very, very wisely and tried to pick the best of all research available. It was a challenging time, and we could talk for hours about why that was difficult logistically and politically, quite frankly, because there were people that wanted to spend, the entire $100 million this year and we'll have a cure tomorrow, but it just does not work that way. There's only so much quality research in for one of these rare type diseases. But I'm happy to report that 12 years later, we've gone from having one FDA approved drug that was available when our son was first diagnosed to probably 6 or 8. And there are some therapies that have been shown to halt, or in some cases even, this is rare, but in some cases even reverse some of the progression. By no means do we have a cure at this point, but I am really hopeful that these treatments that are currently in the drug pipeline are going to be very effective and be able to deliver first treatments that will halt the disease, then reverse some of the symptoms, and ultimately cure ALS. And I hope this happens in my lifetime, Kenny. I truly pray that it will, because for me, that would really be gratifying to see that happen, and that our son and our family played some small role in seeing that move forward, along with thousands and thousands of other people that have been involved in helping the cause. But that's my hope, is that a cure is, I don't believe it's going to happen, this year or next year, maybe even not this decade, but progress is being made and it seems to be accelerating. And that's reason for hope.
That's a beautiful way to wrap up this segment. He's Stuart Obermann, and he and his wife went through the journey of having a son who developed ALS. They lost him many years ago, but he has been deeply immersed in the work of giving hope and direction and support for families and others in terms of their current journey. Stuart, thank you for joining me. I'm going to reach out to you again, and I want to continue this conversation. Plus, we have 2 additional topics now that we have also discovered. I look forward to that.
It's been a pleasure, Kenny. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, Stuart. Take care, man.
You too.
All right. I'm going to come back in just a moment with more of the broadcast. I'm Kenny Anderson. It's Second Chance. I hope that you're having a fantastic afternoon.
You're listening to Second Chance with Kenny Anderson.
Welcome back to the broadcast on this beautiful Sunday afternoon, August the 9th. Already, I tell you, we're just clipping through the month of August, and I'm just so excited that we have this opportunity to once again fellowship and have great conversation and context on a variety of different things. My next guests are here. I'm going to dive right into the conversation with them after I introduce them. They were just with me a couple of weeks ago, and they passed the test, so I asked them to come back. And here they are one more time, and I'm just as excited as I was the last time. Kymone Hinds is CEO of Monetize Ministry. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great today, Kenny. Good. Thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, man. Look, welcome back, man. You can come every couple of weeks as far as I'm concerned. You know, you got some platform elevators. You kind of lift my show up, and I love it. Pierre Quinn is joining us this afternoon. He's CEO of the Cardell Group. How you doing this afternoon, my brother?
I'm excited to be back with you.
It's great to have you back. And I don't know if Athena's going to join us, but if I see her pop up, I'll bring her right on into the conversation. Gentlemen, there is a very, very exciting event that's coming up. And I don't know if you're more excited than me, but I'm pretty excited about your event that's coming up. The Monetize Ministry Conference 2026 takes place at the end of next month, which is the best month on the planet anyway, because that's my birthday month and I celebrate all month long. But I won't steal the headlines in this moment. I'll focus on this extraordinary event that's taking place that you guys are excited about we talked a little bit about your ministry, and I'm saying your ministry in a very specific way, but how you have invested in the spaces that you are right now to bring information to people, support to people, to connect them to various resources and other things that can help them monetize their ministry. Come on, I'm going to just ask you to give me the Cliff Notes version of what you're doing in this space right now. I'm going to do the same thing with Pierre, and then I'm going to move on to the conference so we can really hype that thing up.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we have the wonderful privilege of doing is helping people who have God-given abilities, life-earned expertise, and just different talents. We have the opportunity to help them to package those things into products, services, and ways to make income while making impact. We have an interesting story, Kenny, we want to tell you about the last time we were on here. We'll share it later. But that's the Cliff Notes version of what we have a chance to do. We have a chance to help people discover what we already have, package it, and learn how to put it out into the world.
All right, Pierre, tell me what's going on, man. What's your backstory?
You know, we feel like there is a ton of people who are excited about what they have, but sometimes they're a little lost on what to do with it. We believe, and we've been teaching this for a long time, in order for some people to move forward and make tremendous progress, they need three things. One, they need a framework or an example. Two, they need to see people who have actually done it. So it's not just theory. And then three, they need a community that serves as a catalyst for all of these things. And that's the environment that we've been creating for the past couple of years now.
Yeah. I got from our last conversation that you guys are really excited about the space that you're in right now. You have moved away from, in one context, traditional ministry as ministers, and you've invested in spaces now that not only allow your own creative skills to manifest themselves and deepen even more, but now you're actually sharing these resources with other people as well. And I can only imagine that the kinds of experiences you're having on the ground now, because you're really in the trenches in a different context now, you're seeing some things that are really creating a lot of enthusiasm and excitement in the work that you're doing. Come on, am I on the right page there?
You're absolutely on the right page. You know, I think there's an excitement we get, obviously, when people sign up, join our program, but we get a greater excitement when the people who have signed up, joined our program, they launch their own programs. When they step on stages and speak, when they produce their books and people are reading their books, there's an excitement. I know Pierre and we get when the people who have gone through our speaking program, they post online, hey, I'm speaking for this national convention, this national program here. And it allows us to see that the things we talk about, they work, but also, Kenny, the messages that people have been sitting on, they are actually getting out there into the world. And I think that's the excitement that I have.
Yeah, Pierre?
I think for us, it's an exercise in stewardship. It's one of the things that we teach, this idea that you'll have a great idea, you'll have a great concept, and maybe you'll use it once. Or maybe you'll find an expression of it a couple of times. And so often we don't squeeze all of the toothpaste out of the tube. So for Kymone and I, we've had these experiences over time, and we've done things that work for us. And the thought came, well, where can we get the maximum use out of these gifts? And for us, it was teaching them to other people became the highest expression of our stewardship in these areas. So as people take what we have given them and they 10x it with their unique sauce and their spin on it, it just is a reminder to us that there's so much more that can be done if you're willing to use your gift a little bit more.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, my enthusiasm and excitement about you all using your creative gifts comes from my alignment with the event planning space. And I've done professional conferences for many years now, family strengthening stuff and some other kinds of things as well, that have always been something that I love to kind of put together, almost like a Lego set. You know, I'm just like putting pieces together, one piece at a time. I love watching it come together, and I love bringing all those pieces and parts into a space that then create something more from that. And then the branches of that happen from that as well. That's always exciting. You guys have the Monetize Your Ministry conferences going down in Tampa Wesley Chapel, Florida on September 25th through the 27th. Guys, y'all got to open this up and let us know about it. No secrets this afternoon. We want people registering by the dozens this afternoon.
Well,
tell me about it.
Yeah, let me just start by saying I give all the credit, and I'll just say even blame for the fact that we're doing a conference to Pierre. And I'll tell you why I say that. Kenny, we've been operating online for the better part of 2+ years. And so in this time, we've built an ecosystem. We've built a community of people who have interacted. They've taken online trainings together. They've done their speaking together. They've published books based on the work that we've done. They've started their coaching programs, but we've done the majority of it online. And Pierre said, we need to bring the family together. We need to bring the community together. And so here we are. And what we're doing in Tampa is saying to people, and here's a simple message if you're listening, you've got oil. You have something that God has placed inside of you that maybe you've been overlooking, or maybe you have not maximized it. So you have started that business, but you recognize I can take that to the next level. So we're bringing people together who are faith-driven individuals who started or want to start a business and teaching you how to grow it using biblical principles. So we have some of the best presenters that we could find. So Pierre is going to be one of our presenters, sharing on his expertise on speaking and training using what you have in that space. We have Dr. Myron Edmonds, who will be sharing how he's built a movement of thousands of men now and how to do that using what you have. Athena is going to share, Athena Shack, on how to publish your book, but how one book can open multiple doors. And then just a couple other people I want to highlight. Mignon Francois, Kenny. If any of your listeners you've not heard about Mignon Francois, I'd say Google her. Mignon was a mom, was down to her last $5, and she wanted to help her family. And so she started a cupcake business and took that last $5 to fulfill an order of 600 cupcakes. Made as many as she could with those $5, gave it to the person, they gave her the money, and she kept flipping that money till she fulfilled that order. But she did not stop there. She kept on flipping that money until she's now built an over $10 million cupcake business. I said it right, $10 million cupcake business. She'll be there to share her story. And I believe someone listening to me can resonate with that. God has given you a skill that you can use, but you think to yourself, I don't have a lot of resources. I don't have a lot of whatever that is. Well, you've got oil. That's our message that we're sharing at the conference. I don't know if you want to add anything, Pierre.
One of the things that people wrestle with sometimes is they hear about the ecosystem and the platform and what we offer, and they say to themselves, well, I don't know if I want to be a full-time speaker or a full-time author or a full-time coach. I have a brick and mortar business. I have a cupcake business. There are other things that I do. How does this fit into what I'm looking to do? And one of the things that we teach people is it's not just leveraging the tools and resources to become a full-time speaker, coach, or author. It is also understanding how speaking, writing, and coaching can help drive your business. So it's speaking as a business, or is speaking, writing, coaching as a business, or speaking, writing, coaching to drive the business you already have, and teaching people how to deploy their oil in multiple ways, no matter how it shows up.
Yeah.
Wow. So the cupcake business, let's just stay there for 1 second. If there are people listening right now, and let me just do this. They haven't asked me to do this, but I'm going to do this. Folks, listen to me. I don't care where you are right now. I know you're listening in Huntsville, Alabama. You're listening throughout the state. You're listening around the nation. So there are people in Tampa right now. They're in the Tampa area. So you're Tampa-centric, but you're in Mississippi. You're in Alabama. You're in Tennessee. You're in Florida. You're in many, many places right now. You're in the Carolinas, and you're listening to this right now. And there's something that has already resonated with you about what's been said. And the thing that's resonated with you, I'm just going to confirm. It said you need to be there. That's what it said. You need to be there.
Yeah.
You just heard Kymone say that there was a young lady who was down to her last $5 who has converted that experience that many people would have walked off a bridge on and converted into $10 million. If it was just $1 million, I'd want to hear what she had to say. If she said, listen, I turned that $5 into $1,000, I said, well, tell me how you did that. I don't want to hear from her necessarily because I want to start a cupcake business. Follow me on this. I want to hear from her because there's a process.
Yeah.
Success has a process, and a mindset is part of that process. See, a lot of us talk about, I'm taking over the interview. I'm sorry, guys.
Go.
A lot of people think that it's in the context of what they're experiencing. A lot of people will look at something and talk about what they don't have.
Yeah.
And in reality, it's the what you do have that will then create what you do have.
Yeah.
But people don't always see that. So this is what I got just from that testimony that Kymone gave a few minutes ago. If somebody's listening right now and you're like, I don't know if I have the time. No. You have the time. You have the means. And even if you don't, think about it in the context of the lady who only have $5 and the abundance that she's now living in now. That could be your outcome as well. Wow, this is powerful, guys. How do people learn more about this? And then we're going to talk more about the conference. I'm not done. I want to hear more about it. Well, how do people sign up? They're hungry right now.
Yeah, the way to get to the conference is simply go to mymconference.com. That's M as in man, Y as in you, M as in man, conference.com, mymconference.com. Go there, you'll find all the information, and you can click on there and register today and get your spot before all the spots are gone. So mymconference.com.
And Pierre, what I said also speaks to your point too about the idea that a lot of people are like, I don't know if I want to write the book. I don't know if I want to be a full-time speaker. No one's asking you to do any of that. I think one of the main things that both Kymone and Pierre are saying is just get in the room.
Yeah.
You don't know what God has for you.
Yeah.
But you know, maybe there's something burning inside of you, or maybe you've lost your direction. Maybe you have no hope. Maybe you have no direction. Maybe you feel like you're just kind of listing in the water and you're kind of a floating ship. You don't quite know where you're going to land. You don't see a destination. Just get in the room. I'm going to tell you this. Just get in the room, and I promise you, your life will be changed as a consequence of that. Guys, talk to me a little bit about and validate the significance of just getting in the room.
Come on, you got to do the testimony. You got to, before we forget, because that's a part of being in the room. You know,
give it up, brother.
Been in the room with us and really embrace that experience and what it turned out to be.
Yeah, I'll give the testimony, and then Pierre, I'll let you expound on it. So, Kenny, the last time we were here, someone who we did a mastermind. It was not the full scale as the conference, but they determined the mastermind was in Maryland. They lived in Huntsville. They were like, I got to get in the room. Her name is Dorian. Dorian, I'm calling your name again because I called her name the last time I was here, Kenny.
Oh, yeah.
And she got in the room and she got on the stage and she shared her talk on making the jump. And since that day, Dorian has been making the jump. She has been putting herself out there with her books and her speaking and her business and impacting children, young adults, and just adults. So the last time we were here, you asked us to share a story of someone who was in our program. We shared Dorian's story. Yeah. Someone listened to your program and Dorian had a conversation. They said, I heard about you on Kenny Anderson's show. And she said, well, I haven't been on his show. I don't know how you heard about me. And she mentioned my name, Pierre's name. They said, yes, it was that show I was listening to. And because of that, it opened the door for her to now partner with a major organization to share her books. And they're carrying her books in their organization. And I'll just say it's a national organization that has a wide reach. And so you never know one connection in a room, what it can do for you.
Wow.
Pierre, so shout out to your radio program, Kenny, for making that connection for her.
Yeah. And before I bring Pierre in, I want to embrace and affirm the shout out because, you know, this for me is a labor of love. I've been doing this, like I said, it'll be 36 years in November. And when I started, I was just a mental health counselor, just trying to make an impact in people's lives and you know, just ask God to pour everything he could into me. I was 21 years old, just starting out in the game. And David Person, general manager of the station, invites me to come on and develop a show that will help give people a sense of hope. That's basically where Second Chance comes from, connecting people to the hope beyond the crisis, beyond the adversity, understanding we serve a God that can provide all and do all. And 36 years later, here we are on the internet. Here we are live streaming. Here I am sitting at home doing the show.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started doing the show, it's reel to reel behind me. Somebody's working a board over here. I don't know what I'm doing except talking on a microphone. God is good, and he's been good for that very reason. Yeah. Because 36 years ago, he saw that conversation that we had. See, this is just mind-blowing to me. He saw that conversation 36 years ago that we would have when we had it. Dorian had her space that she was cultivating to share her gift that was then inserted into your testimony on this show that then connected her to something that has allowed her to blossom even more. This is why I keep coming into the station doing the show. That's exactly why. Pierre, what you got, man? You gotta have something, man. This is too good.
This idea, this concept of second chances, seeing beyond the immediate crisis. What's happening for a lot of people right now, Kenny, is they're wrestling with a crisis of identity. And it's a crisis of identity. Much of it is happening because of the shifts taking place in our society. Companies, they're laying off, they're downsizing, they're restructuring, people are retiring. And we've had quite a few individuals that fit under those categories that come into our programs. It's speaking, writing, and coaching. And this crisis of identity puts them in a place where they wrestle with, is my story valuable enough to make a difference in the life of someone else? And the difficulty is a lot of people have only been listening to or telling their story one way. And once we walk through them, and Kymone will tell you, you can't script these God moments that happen every time we have an event online and in person. We know it's going to happen in September at the conference. These God moments that happen when people realize the movement in their story and how, with the right nudge and perspective, because organizations don't hire you to tell your story. They hire you because your story intersects with an organizational challenge. They read something in the book that intersects with a problem. One of their leaders went through your coaching program and they've seen how it's impacted their KPIs, all because we were willing to see. And much of the insight comes in the crisis. On the other side of it, looking back from what you've been brought from and carrying those lessons forward. And it doesn't just transform your life, it transforms the lives of so many other people. And sometimes, to your point, Kenny, you just got to be in the room so that you can have that grace-filled aha moment and take that to the rest of the world. Yeah.
I have shared since last November. I've shared regularly how I went to George Frazier's Power Networking Conference in Atlanta last November. And, I actually had George Frazier in Huntsville many years ago for an event that I did. So I was very familiar with him, but I was telling other people I'm going to this conference. They're like, oh, yeah, well, who is he? And such and such and so. So I went to this conference. I tell people I came back after 3 days when I spent nothing but time in a room with people who were going somewhere in life.
Yeah.
And how powerful that experience was. And I said to people, I said, listen, very honestly, I can't tell you that we all had it figured out, but I could tell you that we all were committed to going.
Yeah.
And the commitment to going meant that we were going to be determined and invested in finding out what it took to do it.
Yeah.
And so rather than sitting in a room with people talking about how bad things are and how awful things are and what we can't do and what we don't have, I'm like, don't tell me about what I don't have, what I can't do. I'm going to find it and I'm going to figure out how to do it. Yeah. And when you're in a room like that, where you're in spaces like that with people for 2-3 days, it changes the trajectory of your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes we can talk about who is on the stage. And
please.
Who's on the stage is powerful, but who is in the room is just as powerful. When you recognize, wait, I'm not the only one who's been having this dream. I'm not the only one working on something. I'm not the only one that God has given this vision for my life. So you know what? I'm going to keep moving forward because now I have confirmation that God is doing something and I'm in the right place. And as you said it, we can stay counting what we don't have. But our message at this conference is you've got oil. And we know oil has value. In our world, oil has value. In the church, oil has spiritual value. It has marketplace value. And every believer, I believe, has something God has given you that even if you are using it now, you can do more with it. And that's what we're saying. Let's stop talking about what we don't have and let's maximize what we do.
Yeah, that's good. And I see we've got maybe 4.5 minutes left. We're going to get as much as we can in during that time. These guys are going to come back. They're going to hit you one more time where it feels good, not where it hurts, where it feels good. Because right now I know you're feeling good about everything they're saying. It's motivating, it's inspiring, and I hope that you're connecting. When people come to this conference, aside what we've talked about, just strategically, logistically, what can they expect?
Sure. So you can expect a few things. You're going to get inspired. So I've already shared some stories, and imagine just with the Cliff Notes version, the inspiration you've heard. Each speaker, we've chosen them because they have a story that will inspire you. But we're also intentional. We want to make sure we are teaching. We're teaching you the how-tos of the things that are needed for your business. But it's an interesting perspective. We're teaching it from a biblical perspective, which we understand biblical principles are timeless. There's some things that will change, but biblical principles are timeless. So we're teaching you that. But also, here's the part that I like. It's a time of celebration. We believe for the people who are building businesses, those of you listening to me who've started businesses, those of you who are starting, we believe there is an energy we get when we celebrate progress rather than what hasn't happened. So there'll be a time of celebration and a wonderful time of networking. We've curated the room that we're not sitting looking at the back of each other's heads. I'll just tell you that. You will be sitting at a table with people. They'll become family members by the time you leave, and you would have built some bonds and created some accountability right there in the room that will serve you beyond there.
How much is accountability important in spaces like this?
I tell people all the time that you let yourself off the hook all the time.
That's me.
You made a promise, you made a commitment, you were going to start, you were going to continue, you were going to reset. And then you have those days where you say to yourself, oh, tomorrow, or I worked hard, or I'm going to give myself a pass. But when you have to be accountable to someone else, it doesn't just up the ante a bit. It strengthens that resolve. And I know Kymone and I have conversations every week. And I know I'm going to have a conversation with Kymone at the end of the week. By the time I get to the end of the week, there are certain things I need to check off that list. And if I don't check it off, it's going to be an awkward conversation. And it's good to have so that I'm not carrying the burden of the oil by myself. It's good to have a community of people that I can check in and who are checking in on me. Sometimes it's a like, sometimes it's a share, sometimes it's a comment, sometimes it's a text message that simply says, hey, keep going, I'm in your corner. And those little pieces, I call them godsends. Accountability is a godsend so that we can continue on the mission. Yeah.
Guys, this has been an awesome conversation. I want you to finally, at least for this conversation, let people know one more time. The conference is Monetize Your Ministry Conference 2026. I'm excited about it. Kymone and Pierre are excited about it. Other people are excited about it, and we want you to be excited about it. How can people get information? We want them to do it today. Don't wait till tomorrow. We want you to register today.
Yeah, so the best way to do it is to go to the conference website, which is mymconference.com. MYM for Monetize Your Ministry. So the simple mymconference.com. You'll find all the info on there, all the speakers, the schedules. We have a frequently asked questions so that you'll know everything that you need, and you can go ahead and grab your spot so you can, as we said, be in the room.
Yeah. You guys are going to have to work on the location, man. Tampa is kind of tough duty, man. Tough duty.
I'll tell you this, though. It's warm, so.
Yeah. Oh, man. Listen, that's a great location. That alone, it's funny. When I look at conferences, there's a vast difference between a conference in Minneapolis and Tampa. It's like
in September, late September. Come on now. Yeah.
Man, woo. Listen, folks, that alone should have you thinking about making this move. So Kymone and Pierre, I know we got another conversation first Sunday in September, and we're going to give people another opportunity to learn more about this conference and excitement about it. We'll be building, I'm sure. You guys may have some more teasers in there too. We'll see what happens at that time. But this has been great. Thank you so much for the time you've given me today.
Thank you. Again, MYM Conference, folks, just go there before you forget, because I know human nature. So go to mymconference.com. Thank you so much, Kenny.
Absolutely. We'll drop it in the chat box too so that you won't forget it. And we'll also post it on the Second Chance Instagram page, the Second Chance Facebook page as well. So it'll be in your face. Awesome. You won't miss it. You'll see it everywhere you go because we want you to be there. All right, guys. Good to see y'all.
All right. Take care.
All right. Man, what a great conversation. I hope you're fired up about the conference, folks. It's the Monetize Your Ministry Conference 2026. It's going down September 25th through the 27th. It's going to take place in Tampa, Wesley Chapel, Florida, and it's going to be a conference like none other. You want a healthy dose of motivation. It's the place that you absolutely want to be and that you absolutely want to become a part of. My final guest is joining me right now. He is Keith Lowhorne. He's the founder of Grandparents as Parents. We've had him on the show before, and we're always interested in learning about what this organization represents to communities, as well as additional things that may be happening to help strengthen their ability to do what they do. Keith, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing fantastic, Kenny. How about you?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. And of course, anytime we get a chance to chat in any arena, any forum, any discussion, I know it's a good thing because we're going to learn a lot of good things that can help people. And I know we're all about helping other folks. So thank you for joining me on this afternoon. Keith, let's start at the natural spot to start at, because I'm not going to assume people know what the organization is. Let's give them a high-level view of that organization, and we'll talk about recent things that have been going on in support of the organization.
Absolutely. Grandparents as Parents was started about in 2020. We started when the pandemic hit, when our grandparents started reaching out to my wife, Edie, and I, looking for food, looking for support, looking for all these type of things that they needed and they needed help with. So we had been doing some food distributions and some things kind of before that. But when the pandemic hit, it really started going. We started with 25 families coming and get food in our house to, the next week it was 50 and so on and so forth. And since 2020, we've helped almost 70,000 families with food, school supplies, Christmas, books, handout, clothes, pajamas, furniture, anything we get our hands on, we like to pass along to our grandparents. And it's not just grandparents, it's kinship. We call it's referred to as kinship. Grandfamilies is a term that the government came up with several years ago. And it's a good term, but a lot of people are concerned that it doesn't encompass it all. So there's aunts, uncles, brothers and sisters, teachers and preachers who are raising these children as their own when their parents can't or won't. So, so it's been a good time. It's been a lot of learning, and man, we're just glad and tickled that when we can help any grandparent.
Your organization, as I always say, I think is one of the most important organizations that are out there, because more and more we see the family dynamics shifting. We see grandparents caring for their kids for whatever the circumstances might be. And I just go back to my own experience in 1986, 87, when my mom started taking care of her youngest daughter's child, her first grandchild. So I've seen that happen forever. And yet I know that because of societal changes, it's happening more and more and more. It's probably a space that many people don't expect to find themselves in, but do. And when you find yourself in a space that you don't expect to find yourself in, many times you don't know where to go. You don't have the resources. As I was sharing with one of my recent guests, sometimes you think you're dealing with something in isolation. And so I believe that what this organization does is really it's like a lighthouse. It's like a beacon of hope. And it provides an opportunity for those grandparents in those situations those families who are that finding themselves in very stressful circumstances because of things that have happened or developed in their lives, this is a source that they can find grounding in. Is that right?
Absolutely. We're here to advocate, support, and even educate our kinship families, because they enter into a world that they're not used to, they're not aware of, and sometimes they're just thrust into this by a knock on the door or a phone call from someone that says, "Hey, you have a choice. Come get these kids. Somebody's being arrested," or else they go into the foster care system, which is the last thing that anybody wants to do, is to put a child in the foster care system, which is, it's overworked, overburdened, and understaffed, and everything else that you can think of. So relatives are always the best and first choice that it should be.
Yeah. So you posted something last week, and I want to dive right in right now. I'm going to just read a little bit of it and ask you to expound on it. But I was excited for you because I saw it as something that was probably continuing to move the needle in the direction that you want to see it move as it relates to advocacy, because you can't accomplish what you're trying to accomplish without collaborators.
That's right.
You can't do it without legislation from elected officials and local people in the space that you may live. So just last week, this is a piece of what Keith wrote and posted online that made me reach out to him and ask him to come back on and share this news with us. Keith said, "I'll call this today a historical day for grandparents as parents and all kinship caregivers. The Federal Advisory Council on Grandparents Supporting Grandchildren and the RAISE Council voted unanimously to pass several new updates to the 2022 document." Now, what I want you to do is talk a little bit about this Federal Advisory Council. What is it? What it represents, and why it exists, and how it aligns with the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very honored to be a part of the SGRG, or the Supporting Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. It's an advisory council that's been in existence for about 5 or 6 years now. In 2022, they wrote the very first congressional piece of legislation that was geared towards grandparents raising grandchildren. In 2024, it was updated just a little bit, and I had the privilege of updating that and being a part of that update a little bit. And then I was elected chair of the Supporting Grand Families group there, and so for the last 2 years, we've been meeting. There's been meeting after meetings with our members they come from all walks of life. There are legislative members. There are federal folks from all different kinds of federal offices. And together, we all put together this update, which is so vital to what we are needing in the world of grand families and kinship. It was just a wonderful time that we were able to for the first time, to bring forth what we had been talking about and what we had been wanting to update. And finally, it was being able to release into the public, as well as it's on its way now to go forth through the legislative session stuff in D.C., which is a long process, as you can imagine. We're hoping, because of the approval of all the federal agencies we had, everybody voted unanimously for the piece of paper to go forward. And we think for that reason, and we're hoping for that reason, that it will get passed and it will get signed in September, which is Kinship Awareness Month. So that's what our federal partners are hoping for. That's what I'm hoping for as the chair, and all the members of our group that have a part of this.
You mentioned, and I think this is so important when we think about the holistic nature of this challenge for grandparents, to be able to step into the lives of their grandchildren or family members, to be able to bring about a cohesive journey with their development and so much more. But you touched on elements of the legal system, the respite system, which I think is a huge one. We don't talk enough about mental health, education, medical, of course, health expenses and things of that nature. This really is a all hands on deck thing that you're talking about. And even though there may be things that develop and emerge in certain areas, holistically, when we talk about grandparents, you really have an a la carte here where you've got lots of opportunity and selection from various sources, perhaps, to be able to address various needs. Am I in the ballpark on that?
Absolutely. When I was before the speech and before we were all meeting in Santa Ana, I said, if this passes today, it's a grand slam for our families. This can change people's lives in such a positive way. And instead of our grandparents have to suffer without medical care, without having to do without some of their prescriptions and some of their just going to the physical ailments that you get when you get older. And this could be a game changer, whether it's legal. Our grandparents want to, at some point, and usually do want to adopt the children they're caring for, just because. I mean, you may think that the birth parents are completely out of the pictures. The birth parents may have even died. And so they need those children to be a part of their family in an official capacity, but you can't afford to adopt. It is so cost prohibitive for families who are living on $1,500 a month or less. It's hard to raise a child anyway. But when you're doing it for $1,500 a month, that's hard. And our grandparents are doing without, so that those kids can do their sporting events, so they can go to a football game, or so they can do all these various things that children want to do, and they have a right to do, and they deserve to be able to do it. And our grandparents are suffering because of it. Legal is just one of them. The mental health, it takes 2 to 3 years to get a child who's been born addicted to drugs. It takes years to get them in some sort of mental health therapy, which they need so bad. Education. What can you say about education? When your grandparents and your kinship families have trouble getting those kids involved in school, or even getting them enrolled in school, it's a problem. And this will smooth that part away, so that there could be some representation for our grandfamilies as they move forth and try to face these challenges. It's just an eye opener when you start reading some of these things that we're hoping to accomplish. We hope it's just sails through as is. We think it's about family first, and that's very important to most of the legislators in the DC area. And so we hope that this is. We hope that with their partnership with the people that they sent and set on our committees, that this will be it'll be a walk in the park. So yeah. So I'm excited. Let me tell you, I've been to Washington DC a few times for this, and we've had Zoom calls, many hours going through these lines, line by line, word by word, to say, what does this mean? And does it mean what we want it to say? And man, it's been fabulous that we've had the help of some of our nationwide and nationally known nonprofits, the John Hartford Association, Generations United, and so many others that were just there just to help us and guide us along the way and say, hey, if you change this word, it changes the whole meaning. And when you have like 10 people looking at that and making changes, you got a pretty doggone good document. And I will say that once this gets out into the public, which it probably will in the next couple of weeks after it gets all those refinements that they do, that is going to be an eye opener for folks in this world. I don't know why it didn't make headlines when we were doing it, but I think it's like a lot of things, in the media these days, they're just not as receptive to some things that are happening. And while that's a shame, when this hits, I think it's going to be great news on a local level, a national level, and probably an international level, because there's families around this world that are doing what we're doing.
Yeah, transformative is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Has the capacity to be that. And you're right. This is something that should be making headlines, and they should be talking about it everywhere. But, these stories get bumped for, this celebrity that's got this thing going on, or this thing that's bleeding over here, or this person that's angry at this person, or this social media thing that, that's my soapbox. I won't get on it too deep, but, that's why we have Second Chance, though. And that's why I always celebrate this broadcast and a platform that I've been granted to be able to create these opportunities for people to learn about these things, and then not just do it as a soundbite. We don't package this, 2-3 minutes. We take time, and then you want to come back, and so we want to create forward momentum in this powerful journey that you're on. And to the point you made, I hope you'll share a little bit about this, because I'm one of those folk that celebrate the people behind the scenes. You know, I have seen it. I MC a lot of events. I do not let the program transition back into the program until I thank the wait staff.
Yep.
I think, you know, those people that have, you know, maybe they got up at, you know, 5 o'clock that morning to get in early to prepare all that food and to set those tables and things like that. I always thank people, you know, when I have I'm stepping off a plane, you know, that pilot and that flight crew just got me safely on the ground. I don't just walk past them. Thank you. Thank you very much for a great flight. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
You have been immersed in a space as chair, but also as a person who is involved in this particular journey in a way that a lot of people haven't, who will ultimately benefit from it. But talk to me a little bit about, as you said, the hundreds of hours that have been invested in this process, and the writing and the rewriting and reading and all of the things that have gone on behind the scenes. This is a big part of the story as well. The investment that people like you and others perhaps make in this space. I wonder if you could just share about what that feels like for you to be in that particular part of the journey.
You know, it's been wonderful. You know, at first I was really, because when they invited me to be part of the SGRG, I was like, you know, it's a federal thing and I'm just not sure how that's going to work over. But let me tell you, when I walked into that room where this meeting took place, and there were all these people that I've spent dozens of hours with on the, you know, just looking at a small screen like we are, and I saw them in person. I mean, it was like a family reunion. We were hugging each other. We had never met each other before, you know. And it's what, you know, one of the stories that comes to my mind right now is there was a person that takes care of behind the scenes for video and audio for the government, and it's a private company, and they contract all that stuff out. And this lady and I have been collaborating on several things concerning the internet and some of the things we're doing with the writing. And after it was over, she sent me an email because I got real personal during my testimony, and she wrote me an email. She goes, "Hey, Keith, just so you know, I'm one of you, and I've been raising my granddaughter for 7 or 8 years."
Wow.
It's like, wow. I didn't even know it. She had been quiet this whole time. And she said, now this has been lifted off of me because I heard what you were saying, and I don't have to be silent anymore. And I'm just like, wow. And you know, I don't want to get all religious on you and all, but you know, it's just funny how God puts you in a place at a time. And I if you give me just a moment to say these things, I was sitting in Reagan Airport in DC about to head home. And I had my drink and I was sitting there, I was working on the computer, and these people came to me and sat down next to me. We were only going to be on the same flight. And they came and sat down next to me and they started chatting. They obviously worked together. And they were starting to talk about going on vacation. And this man, who's probably in his 50s, he started talking about he didn't know if they were going to be able to go on vacation this year because they had adopted their granddaughter. So, you know, Lowhorne ears pick that up. After 43 years in broadcast, you hear things that, you know, some people don't hear. Right. And he started talking about, you know, the challenges and everything. And I pulled out a card and I said, "Sir, please excuse me, but here, can I help you?" And I pulled my card and we talked for the next 30 minutes.
Wow.
And you just never know when that's going to happen. And every day, God puts people in our making a phone call or somehow contacting us that needs help. This morning I had one. Her granddaughter and grandson were put on her doorstep Saturday night. Daughter-in-law and daughter were caught with a whole bunch of drugs in their house. And the funny thing about this one, the daughter is the one that turned the parents into the police.
Wow.
Now that's the first for me. I've never heard of that before. I've heard of adult people doing, but a 15-year-old. I told her grandmother, I said, "Ma'am, we need to applaud that young lady. We need to stand up and give her a standing ovation because she did what was right, even though it was, you know, I'm sure it's gonna hurt that relationship. But my God, if she can get help for her parents, that's great." So, you know, you just never know, Kenny. You just never know when somebody's going to be there for you, and just in just that moment of time that you feel like everything is so busy and you're so tied up, and all of a sudden you get that phone call and you spend the next 2 hours on the call talking with these people and trying to reassure them that they're not alone and that there's somebody out there to help them, and that here we are. We want to help you in any possible way that we can.
Well, we don't. This is a faith-based space. It's safe. We don't shy away from that. In fact, I was sharing earlier, the reason not that the show is called Second Chance is because when David Person and I was searching for a name for the show, we said, well, what about the grace and the mercy of God? Because we were basically talking about all the challenges that we face and friends face and families face, but yet there's always this one constant in the midst of whatever the crisis is, and that's God.
Absolutely.
And so I applaud you for injecting that acknowledgement into this conversation, because that is the grounding, and I don't have to push that on anyone. I know what it is, and my conversation with somebody doesn't have to include anything related to my belief, but you're going to understand that there's a power in me that's driving me in a way that helps me connect to that. And it's that same power that allowed you to speak life into this person, this 30-minute conversation. We go to the airport, we go to catch our flight, right? We don't go to really change our life or save the world. But then God places us in circumstances and situations that allows his grace, his mercy, his love to flow through our lives, through those channels that he's provided. I love all of this, Keith. I love all of it.
And it's just at that moment when you think you're about to get some work done, or you're about to be able to, oh, my desk is finally clean, or whatever. I've answered all my emails, and all of a sudden you have a grandmother or grandfather crying on your shoulder saying, please, can I have help? Can you help me? Everything from, I don't know how to handle a baby that's been born addicted that they've given me, or to a teenager who I haven't raised a teenager in, 15 or 20 years. And it's a whole different world these days. When you have 8, 9, 7, whatever age is that kids start getting cell phones these days, and they learn all that social media stuff. That's trouble as far as I'm concerned, but that's for another day. But we're here to help our grandfamilies and our kinship in any way that we possibly can. This has been a great move for us on a national standpoint. There's some other things in the works on a national standpoint that we're trying to get done. As we know, the child welfare system is broken. It's down. I don't know that it's fixable, to be honest with you. And anybody that's a part of it will probably be able to tell you the same. And so later this month, I'm going to Spokane, Washington, to speak at a conference on let's try to see what we can do with the child welfare system. So that's one that's near and dear to me. Very few folks that we deal with. For every one that are in the child welfare system, 85 are being raised by a grandparent on that informal side. So there's a huge difference. But there are kids in that side that need help, and grandparents need that help as well. So we're here for everybody. We don't care we're just here for children. It doesn't matter to us. This is the next generation that we're raising, and we ought to make it as good and as best as we can for these children, because they're the next leaders.
That's right, and we got to do all that we can for them in this particular moment to position them for that success and to prepare them for their opportunity to step up. Keith, there are people listening this afternoon. They're excited about what's happening. They may be more informed than they were in the past about this organization. They may want to get connected. They may want to help and support in some way. How would they learn more about the organization? If people want to help, how would they help?
Absolutely. Well, you can go on our website. It's GAP, G-A-P, spell out Alabama.org. So it'd be gapalabama.org. Or our phone number is 256-258-9573. And that gets you hooked up to someone that's there and available on the phone. We're part of the 211 network now, so if you call 211, they can get you in contact with us. There's all different kinds of ways. Ask a grandparent that's next to you; they may know us. It's you'd be surprised the number that we're just seeing every day, and and they're a blessing to us in so many different ways. And can I add this? We just hired 2 people.
Oh, really?
Yes. I mean, it came from a blessing from we last year we were very involved in the opioid settlement money where the opioid money flowed from the committee down to the Department of Mental Health, down to the AAAs, or the Area Aging Agency, or in Huntsville, it's the TARCOG. And we were able to get $500 in some grandparents' hands. Not nearly enough, but we got $500 in some hands, which is good. So GAP, we applied for an opioid grant as well to do work within our scope, and we were granted a small grant that has now allowed us to hire 2 part-time contract employees that are going to help. It's going to take some of the load off me. We're hired an opioid educator who's going to be able to go into schools and go and be able to talk. We're working with Auburn's Coach program, which is the Center for Opioid Relief, and which is a wonderful, wonderful program. And we're just trying to partner with all these folks. Yes, you really need to talk to these people. You may want to have them on their show. It's a wonderful program, and they're based in Huntsville.
Listen, I would love to have them on the show.
The young lady that's in charge of it is a dynamo. She is fantastic.
Oh, wow.
I'll send you her contact information.
Please do. This is absolutely wonderful. And I think, again, it's a manifestation of the work that you've done and the way that God continues to bless you in this process. I mean, wow, you're growing, you're expanding, you're reaching people. There's hope. Because of the legislation that's being moved around and people are talking about this, there's greater awareness being created. I just think that everything is moving in a positive and healthy and productive direction. And I'm just so happy for you. He's Keith Lowhorne, founder of Grandparents as Parents. And you thought this was the last conversation that we're ever going to have? Not a chance. Every time he comes on, he enlightens us and he helps us understand the dynamics of this particular challenge that many people face. And he's at the helm, so he knows exactly what's going on. Keith, thank you so much for always being so generous to come on when you're invited.
Kenny, it's always a wonderful experience to talk with you and see you out in the public with your nice 3-piece suits on, always dressed to kill. And it's been an honor to know you for all these years that we've been a part of together, and it's just wonderful. So I appreciate you very much for allowing us to do this.
Absolutely. I look forward to the next conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. What a great way to wrap up the broadcast today. I always love talking to Keith because he is dealing with a demographic that really sometimes gets overlooked, sometimes gets forgotten, and sometimes don't know how to make the connection to the resources and support systems that are available out there. And he's on the ground making this happen, working with some really, really dedicated and passionate people. And I love the work of Grandparents as Parents. I love Keith at the helm. Also, the federal organization, Federal Advisory Council on Grandparents Supporting Grandchildren, and the RAISE Council, having a leadership role in that. Another amazing piece of the journey that he's on. So I want to thank him for being part of the conversation today. Also want to thank Kymone Hinds, the CEO of Monetize Your Ministry, and Pierre Quinn, CEO of the Cardell Group, for a great conversation about the Monetize Your Ministry conference taking place September 25th through the 27th in beautiful Tampa, Florida. I hope that you learned something about that event. Stuart Obermann, my good friend Stuart, who is the founder of the local chapter of the ALS Association here in Huntsville, talking about his journey, him and his wife's journey with a son, Eric, who contracted Lou Gehrig's disease and passed in 2010, but just talking about the journey and what's being done on the ground now, about the work. Thank you, Stuart, for a great conversation this afternoon. And of course, Dr. Curtis Taylor, the Vice President of Development for the 100 Black Men of Greater Huntsville chapter. This has been an amazing experience today. Great way to launch our second week in the month of August. On next week, you know what it is, folks, is what's going on, my social and political roundtable discussion with a group of commentators who will share insight and perspective on a variety of ways. In the meantime, I hope that you have a great rest of the week. Remember, as always, knowledge is better than riches. I hope that you have a fantastic afternoon.
Thank you for tuning in to Second Chance. We hope that the information that was shared has been a blessing to you and that your life will be enriched as a result of it. We'd love to hear from you. So please send your email comments to Kenneth Anderson at mxlife@aol.com. That's mxlife@aol.com. And check out our Facebook page, 2ND Chance. That's 2ND Chance. In the meantime, have a great week, and we'll talk to you again next week. Good day.